All right. Mark 2:15. While Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. When the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." If you're a sinner like me, he will still have a meal with you. He will still sit across from you and teach you about real love. No matter who you are or where you are in this time and this place, it is never too late to come home. Look, he's having lunch with me right now. I know I don't deserve it. God bless.
Sometimes in our world, we kind of wrestle with it. Do we want to be great in the eyes of the world, or do we want to be great in the eyes of God? I hope that we would say, I want to be great in the eyes of God. Now, sometimes to be great in the eyes of God, we sacrifice being great in the eyes of the world. But Jesus says, that's a good trade. Look what he says. This is one of my favorite verses. It's located for us in the book of Matthew chapter 16. Here's what Jesus says. He says, if you try to hang on to your life, you'll lose it. But if you what? If you give up your life for my sake, you will. Then look what he says here. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world? Meaning, like, if you're the greatest in all the world, what do you benefit if you're the greatest in all of the world, but yet you lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? Jesus says, if you achieve greatness in this world, but in doing so forfeit the core of who you are, that's a bad trade.
Is there any place I can go to avoid your spirit? To be out of your sight? If I climb to the sky, if I go to the depths, you're there. If I flew on morning's wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in an instant. Night and day, darkness and light are all the same to you. You shaped me first inside, then out. You know every bone in my body, how I was sculpted from nothing into something. Your thoughts, how rare, how beautiful. I'll never comprehend them. I look behind me and you're there. And up ahead and you're there too. Your reassuring presence, coming and going. The days of my life all prepared before I'd even lived one day.
Speaking out of both sides of my mouth, I couldn't be more hypocritical in this moment. And unsolicited, I see this kind of vision take over my line of sight. And I remember I was in prison, and my hands were cuffed together, and I had a tray of food, and I was walking in the cafeteria in prison past all these tables, and no one would let me sit with them, and I found my own table, and I sat down, and in walks Jesus. And he's dressed in prison clothing, like me. And he sits down across the table from me. And he doesn't say anything. And I asked him, I said, will you eat another meal with me? And he said, I'll eat with you anytime you want. By the way, the door's open. You can leave anytime you want. When I choose to run from him into the darkness, he's with me in that moment. And he's not angry. And his facial expression is fixed on mine. And he's loving me. And he wasn't demanding that I stop. He was demanding that I invite him into that moment to help me understand how I got into that moment and what's beneath that moment, and to help me search for what I'm really searching for. And I melted. You know, it's one thing to read I'm loved. It's one thing to read, I will be with you. But for him to be with me in my addiction, for him to be with me in prison, and in sickness, and in relapse, over and over and over again, that's what changes me.
Cause I ain't scared of living. No, I ain't scared of living. No, I ain't scared of living.
It is done. It is finished. His grace is infinite. So I recommend you witness it. I never knew what prison meant until the words, Jesus wept. But he kept his promise, and he never left.